The last time Newcastle held a tournament of this size was in 1985. Carrying a total of $10,000 in prize money, the hardcourt title will be run in conjunction with the country championships. Executive Officer from the Newcastle and District Tennis Association, Fenton Cool, says the tournament is part of the pro circuit and could attract some top names.
We should have a fair smattering of professionals and amateurs here for that tournament.
Any big names you would expect to be attracted?
Well, we're hoping that the John Frawleys, Shane Barrs and even John Fitzgeralds may be here, but of course that's dependent on their own commitments, and we're still looking at, hopefully, Peter Doohan being here as well.
Meanwhile, the new courts being laid down at a cost of $300,000 will be finished by the time the tournament starts.
There's an existing 6 courts being now changed, or will be changed to 5 courts, with personal access walkways between each court.
And when would you expect it to be finished?
Well, of course, that's dependent on a few factors, not the least of which is weather, but hopefully by mid-December.
At worst, the toddler may lose 2 of her toes because blood circulation was cut during the 58-hour rescue ordeal. Meanwhile, in the Persian Gulf, the United States is using 5 dolphins for underwater surveillance. The trained dolphins are being used to hunt for mines. Like almost every other sports event this weekend, the weather took its toll, with many of the cyclists opting to stay indoors rather than race. The Maitland City Games Criterium was raced over a 1-kilometre street circuit in the centre of town. In the earlier women's event, first past the post was Libby Lockland, followed by Susan Marshall. In the main event, the men's senior A grade, Chris Logan of Muswellbrook and Greg Ireland of Merewether split from the main bunch to clear out from the rest of the field. The race was over 30 minutes and 4 laps. With the last sprint to the line so close, judges declared Logan and Ireland joint winners. Third home was Bill Cox, who also took the honours in the veterans section. Meanwhile, on a more sedate note, as part of Bicycle Week, people took to their treadleys in an 80-kilometre ride from Dungog to Newcastle. Arranged by the Newcastle Cycleways movement, it was not a race, but was organised as a ride in the country to enjoy cycling with friends and family.
In what must have been one of the luckiest escapes during the wet weekend, no one was injured in this spectacular accident at Merewether Heights, where a car ended up against the side of a house. Police say the driver of the white Commodore lost control of the vehicle on a right-hand bend, veered up a dirt road divide and swerved down an embankment before slamming into the house. The car crashed through a pagoda and came to rest against a bedroom wall, breaking windows and supports. Police say the 2 occupants of the vehicle were able to walk away from the scene. The house was unoccupied at the time. At 1:30 this afternoon, 2 young people also narrowly escaped serious injury. Police say they were travelling west down Hunter Street in a blue Toyota sedan at a speed of around 50 kilometres an hour when they skidded off the road, hit the gutter and flipped onto the boot of a parked car. Police say the accident was apparently caused by the failure of a strut in the Toyota's front wheel assembly. The wet weather today washed out parks and playing fields, already drenched by yesterday's downpour. The highest reported rainfall till 9 a.m. this morning was 56 millimetres at Dungog. Maryville recorded 46 millimetres. While the water did bank up in low-lying areas, the State Emergency Service says, on the whole, it's draining well. The Bureau of Meteorology predicts more heavy falls tomorrow, however, and the SES says if this occurs in the catchment areas around Singleton and Dungog, it could mean problems lower down in the valley. The Bureau expects strong winds to accompany the rain, and it has issued a gale warning for coastal waters north of Maria Heads.
A 10-year-old girl and an 11-year-old girl were using play equipment at the McDonald's in Maitland Road, Mayfield at 3 p.m. yesterday afternoon. The 11-year-old girl was approached by a man who indecently assaulted her. The girls were quick to react, however, and after elbowing the man in the stomach, they returned to one of the girls' houses in Mayfield. Police have ruled out any connection between this assault and a series in the Whitebridge-Cahaiba area in which a man has been trying to lure girls into his car.
At this stage, we would say no. There's a fair difference in the age from the description the girls have been able to give us to the previous man out at Cahaiba and Whitebridge, and just the details surrounding it seem totally different.
Police are asking parents to warn their children to watch out for the man.
Well, we'd advise them to tell their kids, as they've probably been told through the schools, to take note of such things such as the safety house, if they could run for the nearest safety house if something happens. Secondly, if it's near school, go straight to the school and tell either their teacher or the principal, and if it's near home, go straight home. But we definitely, if it's someone they don't know and they've offered them a lift, definitely don't go with them, run away and tell someone as soon as possible.
He is described as 50 years of age, of medium build, about 180 centimetres tall, with grey short hair. He was wearing grey rimmed glasses at the time of the incident.
Vandals have taken their toll on the old railway gatekeeper's cottage in Kingdon Street. It's a far cry from its former glory. It's classified in an urban conservation area by the National Trust, but legally that doesn't prevent it from being demolished. The cottage is also classified under Scone's local environmental plan, but if Scone Council gives the go-ahead, it can be knocked down. Council is accepting submissions regarding the proposal until November the 13th. Jim Court lives next door and doesn't want to see the cottage go.
I think it could be donated probably to the local Shire Council and used for as part of White Park, which adjoins the back area, and could be used as a parking area or a gatehouse or equipment for the park, to keep some of their equipment in. They're always short of sheds to keep their race equipment in.
The SRA says it has no use for the building, but would donate it for community use if approached by someone with a reasonable suggestion. It claims there have been no approaches in the past 18 months. It is in quite a bad state of repair. Do you think it's really worth restoring?
The outside shell's still there. The inside could be restored, I should imagine. A bit of slate off the roof, but that can be replaced. Quite a major job, but not impossible, I wouldn't think.
Mr. Court plans to write to the council, but believes the building will be demolished. What do you say the general feeling will be in the community once it is demolished?
Once it's demolished and gone, I'll say they'd be sorry. And now they'll probably say, oh, old wreck, good to see it go.
And low-income homeowners group won't rest until they have it in writing.
The Department of Sport and Recreation believes education is an essential part of creating safety on the region's waterways. To that end, they've enlisted the services of officers from the Maritime Services Board to conduct public boating safety seminars. Last night, 65 people attended the last of 5 regional seminars, this time held at the Belmont 16-foot Sailing Club. Others at Foster, Nelson Bay, Taree and Newcastle during last week also attracted good numbers. During the seminars, the officers go over the rules of boating and answer questions to do with regulations relating to any watercraft. The Department of Sport and Recreation says the program is a first for the state, and its success in this region means they are now looking at expanding it into other areas as well. They say the response in Newcastle was so good that they have now scheduled an extra seminar to be held on the 23rd and 24th of November in the Department of Sport and Recreation conference room. The second annual Model for Life competition aims to raise funds for the Hunter Life Education Unit, set up last year by the NBN Telethon. Last night, the second last of the 6 heats held across the region transformed the Belmont 16-foot sailing club. 72 contestants strutted the catwalk in a bid to be one of those selected for the finals. The competition is split into 3 sections: the juniors for those under 9 years, teens 9 to 15 years, and the open section. Altogether, almost 400 contestants are taking part this year, with many more having to be turned away. And there is good reason for their enthusiasm. The winner of the open section receives their choice of a trip to Paris or New York and introduction to a modelling agency there, a step which could mean a break into the high fashion world of international modelling. Although the prizes for the other 2 categories are not so grand, there was plenty of enthusiasm from smaller would-be models also, including Shannon Ayres, who showed even 3 is not too young to set your sights on a glamour career. Organisers say they hope to raise $15,000 for the Hunter Life Education Centre through Model for Life this year.
Hello, I'm Jane Button. These little pigs might look all the same to you, but they're not. Tonight we'll bring you a story from the Tocal Board testing station, where they're sifting out the superior genetic lines.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
In a bid to boost international tourism to the region, In Tours Australia are promoting a package deal, especially for American and Japanese honeymooners. During next year, more than 11,000 visitors will stop over in the Pacolban area, bringing $1.5 million to the tourism industry.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
To most of us, a pig is a pig. Those fat pink or brown things that run around snorting and smell just awful. But according to the Tocal Board testing station, that's not the case at all. Some pigs are superior genetically. They are leaner, faster growing and are more economical to raise. The Board testing station is trying to elevate the standard of breeding pigs in Australia. It encourages commercial pig breeders to take part in the Tocal program and have their stock tested. Once signed up, a pig will be examined on a number of fronts, including its feed conversion, growth rate and carcass quality. But for the pigs that don't make the grade, the outlook is not great. They'll find themselves either ending up as bacon or ham. The ones that pass are allowed to go back to their owners and are sold as breeding stock. According to Kevin Hickey, one of Tocal's agricultural officers, there are great advantages in having stock assessed independently.
We bring them here under the same conditions of management, feed and nutrition and environment, and the differences between the pigs then is their genetic potential, and so that we can then say that this particular line of pigs is better than another particular line of pigs.
He admits that some pig breeders find it hard to accept that the pigs that they are selling for breeding might not make the grade.
The margins are smaller, so therefore they've got to get more out of their animal than they did some years ago, and to do that, to be financially viable, they have to use new technology and better, superior genetic lines and that sort of thing.
Says if they do fail to The Falcons had a lacklustre season this year, finishing well down in the competition. However, new coach Ken Cole is promising next year will be different. He's particularly excited about the return of tall American Jerry Everett. After failing to gain a berth with the professional Dallas team in the US, Everett has accepted another season with the Falcons.
I think Everett is potentially the most dominant player in the country in the guard position, and I think that he gives us an element that can't be handled by other teams. So the best news we've had is that he's coming back fairly quickly.
Cole says although Everett played in the team last year, it was not a good measure of his ability.
Well, he played last season in a team that was fairly much in disarray, and a lot of good Americans that have come down here have had a few problems settling in the first year. Jerry is probably no different, although he had a pretty good season statistically. But I think this year I've spoken a lot with him, and I expect him to take much more of a leadership role. We've got a lot of young players this year, and I think Jerry should be the catalyst for them.
Cole says at this stage he is pleased with the look of the 1988 team.
Well, big Derek Polk, our 7-footer who's come up from Sydney, is looking great. He's working very hard every day. I think McDaniels is capable of being in the absolute elite in the league, and we've been real excited about our youngsters around the place. And I think Michael Johnson, who was team captain the last couple of years, I've always been a terrific fan of Michael's, and I think that he's capable of being in the top 2 or 3 Australians in basketball here. So we're pretty enthusiastic about the chances for the coming year.
Our story yesterday marked the beginning of a lengthy inquiry by the federal government into homeless children. Journalist Paul White visited a Sydney refuge which offers youngsters temporary accommodation. One of the youths, shown for barely a few seconds in the report, was recognised by a Lake Macquarie resident. The boy was from Tingara Heights. He ran away from home 8 days ago. Today we invited his distraught mother and sister to the NBN newsroom to view the story. Caroline Anderson identified her son. 15-year-old Peter left school at the beginning of this year. He does not have a job, and his mother does not know why he has run away. Do you think he'd regard this whole thing as a bit of an adventure?
Yes, because he has run away before, and when he's gone before he has got in contact with me, and then he's just come home. But this time he got in touch with me yesterday morning, but he did try to tell me there was a Gold Coast, but the operator said that it was a reverse call from Sydney, so I knew where he was. And then someone in the neighbourhood saw it on TV last night. And
you've got no idea why he's run away?
No.
Now, we hear much about the homeless youth of today, but Peter has a home, doesn't he?
Yes. It's still up.
He has a home, and yet he's chosen to run away.
I don't know why. I would never find this idea why.
Peter has taken to the streets countless times since he was 13 years old, for periods of up to 6 weeks. Unable to deter him, the Andersons have focused their anger on the refuges that accept him without question, providing him with a place to hide and, in their eyes, encouraging his anonymity. Do you think it's fair of the hostels to take these kids in?
They've got nowhere to live, but in Peter's case he has a home.
So you think the hostel should contact you?
Yes, I do.
Hanging over the family is the fear that one day Peter will not come home, and this is proving a tremendous strain.
Oh, his father's dreamt of him being dead.
Your husband's been dreaming that Peter's involved in an accident.
I remember God did somewhere. He thought he had a dream that he thought Peter was dead because he just didn't know where he was. But now that we seen him last night on the news, well, now all we want to do is just get him back home.
Pauline, Peter's run away before. He's gone to hostels before.
Yeah. It's a big joke, these hostels. They get the kids down there. They don't ask the parents what's happened, why the child's run away. They just ask the kids, and parents have to sit at home and just hope to God their kids are alive. And if the hostels got in touch with the parents and started thinking about what the parents are going through as well, not just the kids, and maybe my mother wouldn't be going through what she is now, and my father.
The Andersons will try to trace Peter through last night's report. Meantime, Caroline has a very simple message for her son.
Come home.
On hand to present the prizes was professional surfer and 4 times former world champion Mark Richards at the CES's main Newcastle office this afternoon. The competition was divided into 2 sections, under 16 and 16 to 20 years. The junior winner was Bronwyn Noy of the Francis Greenway High School, and this is her impression of training for the future. Second place went to another girl from the same school, Belinda Bloomfield. Each entry was a completely individual effort, and the differences of approach showed. First place in the senior section was won by Lyndall Campbell of Newcastle Out of Workers Community Youth Support Scheme. Her contribution also took out the statewide award presented in Sydney a week ago. Rachel Vokes of Warners Bay High School was a runner-up with this effort in the senior section, as was Jason Francis of the Francis Greenway High School. His approach to training for tomorrow came out this way. The manager of Youth Access in Newcastle is Helen Parker.
Youth Access is an information service which is set up as part of the CES, and it's designed for young people to provide information on a whole range of issues that they may need advice on, such as legal, income, rental, all those sorts of issues.
The matter of ELCOM's proposed study trip surfaced in Parliament's question time. 8 electrical fitters and mechanics are to travel to England for a 22-week all-expenses-paid trip with an extra 2-week vacation tagged on. The purpose? To study work practices with contractors on site and generate better industrial relations. Councillor Jobling questioned why such experience could not be gained in Australia. He said that the trip, when all aspects were taken into account, would cost more than $1 million, and that the Minister had been ill-informed by his department. The Minister argued with the estimated cost, saying it was just over $170,000. Mr Cox then attacked Councillor Jobling over large increases in salaries for senior management at Shortland Electricity. The moves were also criticised by Premier Ravensworth and Industrial Relations Minister Pat Hills, following reports that in one case a Shortland Electricity executive had received an increase of $160 per week. The government said it was concerned these increases of 20% would cause flow-ons into other levels of county councils and eventually cost consumers much more in electricity charges. And then there was the final matter of 54 customers being refused compensation payments for damage to appliances caused by power surges. Speaking from Parliament House in Sydney today, Councillor Jobling said all the matters raised were simply old matters dredged up. They've all been clearly dealt with, and that the matter of the salary increase was agreed to by the Council. He said the criticisms were a last desperate attack by a minister who has never been in charge of his portfolio. He then called for Mr Cox's resignation before the next election.